What's up, y'all? There's been a tanking discussion around the NBA for really around a month now. So I wanted to go through some of the ideas that have come up and see what is good or bad for the league. Starting with this tweet from Shams Charania, and the first one is going to be the first round picks can only be protected top 4 or top 14 plus. So when you're trading away a pick, it can only be a top 4 or a top 14 plus protected pick. So that would mean we wouldn't get a top 8 pick from this Utah. We wouldn't get top 8 for Washington. And overall, I don't know if this is going to fix tanking. I think it really just does limit trades in the NBA, which we have already started to see not as many trades go through. So I think this is just something that would not really improve tanking, the tanking aspect of the NBA. And the second one is lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline or a later date. And this is one that was thrown around really a couple months ago, and I never really got behind it because at the beginning of the season, we weren't seeing too many quote unquote tanking teams, especially not as hard of tanking as we see now, like the Utah Jazz sitting people, the Indiana Pacers got fined for sitting people. And that's just happened within the last couple of weeks. So if we made this rule that the lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline, then we would see that, and we would see Utah sitting people in the fourth quarter just to start the season. So then it hurts the product at the start of the season. And then the argument is that after the trade deadline, now teams will be competitive. Now we will see a full strength Utah. We will see a full strength Washington to finish out the season. But realistically, I don't know. I mean, you're still having tanking in the NBA. You just switch the dates of which tanking occurs. So I'm not too behind that take. And honestly, personally, I don't know if there is a fix to tanking in the NBA. The front offices and the higher ups of these NBA teams are too smart to implement a rule to fix tanking. Adam Silver tried the frozen odds, and now teams are still tanking. And you've seen how all four of these teams have 40%, but now a Clippers team who's 27-31 and fighting for the play-in could also get a top 4 pick at just 9%. So that didn't fix tanking. So I'm not sure if there is a fix to tanking. But now we have the third one is no longer allowing teams to pick top 4 in consecutive years and or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. So this would really hurt a team like the Spurs, who picked Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, and then Dylan Harper. So we wouldn't have seen a Stephon Castle pick in the middle of that. I'm not sure how well this will be implemented. And for 3 consecutive bottom 3 finishes, I don't remember a team who's finished bottom 3 in consecutive years. I mean, I'm sure there has been like the Wizards or the Jazz, but overall, I don't know if this is going to fix tanking because we've already seen that some of these top teams won't even get a top 4 pick. Last year, Dallas jumped up from the play-in. Atlanta jumped up 2 years ago. So I don't know if that's really the fix. I think the lottery odds, the flattened lottery odds, already prevent the bad teams from picking in that top 4. And outside of the Spurs, I can't remember a team other than like the Pistons who selected Ron Holland, Asar Thompson, and then I think Jaden Ivey were all top 4. But other than those two, I can't think of a team who would have already benefited from this rule. So we would still see a Utah tanking. We still would see a Washington tanking, a Brooklyn tanking. So I'm not sure if that is the fix either. Then the fourth one from Shams Charania is teams can't pick top 4 the year after making the conference finals. And realistically, this one, and we'll get to this one, but both of these seems just like a hit to the Pacers of this year. But when you have your star player going down with injury, there's really nothing much you can do. You have to tank it out. And preseason, I thought the Indiana Pacers would be a lot more competitive than they have been. Just unfortunately, Tyrese Halliburton went out, and then even earlier in the season, they dealt with injuries to everybody. Benedict Mathurin was out, Andrew Nemhard was out, and those are the two guys that you really want to jump from to make this team competitive. And it was just them in Boston who were in very similar situations preseason, and now they're in completely opposite situations where both their stars went out in the playoffs and they had to rehab the whole season. And now we have Boston, who has the 27th worst record, in Indiana, who is now at the third worst record. And overall, if you implement this rule, I don't know how much it's going to fix because it's very rare that a team will be in top 4 after reaching the conference finals. This is a rare occurrence with Indiana. I think it happened with Golden State in 2019, and then they picked James Wiseman in 2020. But regardless, this is just a rare circumstance that the 4 teams who make the conference finals will typically not be in the top 4 lottery in lottery odds the following season. It just so happened that we had a freak injury and their superstar player was out for the season. So I don't think this rule implementing would do anything. Maybe you can implement it just so that it's in the back burner in case another freak accident happens. But overall, I don't really like this rule too much. I think it's kind of a nothing rule that we won't see too often. And now the next one that also looks like it hurts the Indiana Pacers is lottery odds allocated based on 2-year records. So we would not see the Pacers here. We would be done with 1-year tanks like the Indiana Pacers, who had an injury, the Dallas Mavericks, who were good enough last year before Luka got traded, and then we fell to the play-in range and then jumped up. But we wouldn't see us at 7 because our record, we would be around 10 or 11. So we would just be done with the 1-year tanks, and you would need 2-year tanks. But then, I mean, unless you are the Indiana Pacers, you would just see more 2-year tanks. I mean, we're tanking this season now as my Dallas Mavericks, and it's because if this rule was implemented, right, we would not see us be competitive again next season. We would go throughout this season with a losing record, get the 9th or 10th pick, and then go into next season with another losing record, not trying to fight for the play-in, so that then we could get a top draft pick in that 2027 draft. So overall, I think this does just extend rebuilds. I think going for these Sacramento, Brooklyn, once they get that top pick, they might as well tank again. If Sacramento gets Darren Peterson right here, they might as well tank again next year and try to get that lower pick for a top pick in 2027. So then they would start competing in 2028 with Darren Peterson. So overall, I think this does just extend teams tanking. It would hurt a team like the Indiana Pacers since they were a 50-win team last season. But overall, looking at most of these teams, they weren't too great last season, so we would still see similar lottery odds, and we would not see as many breakouts. So I don't really like that rule too much. The next one is lottery extended to include all play-in teams, and I don't think this is that great of a rule either. If we look at these standings, I think it does just add more variability, more variables to the NBA lottery. And I think I'm not sure like what the justification for this rule would be, because now you have these Suns who now have lottery odds even though they're a top 7 team in the West and would have the 19th best record. So now it just gives them lottery odds so they can potentially jump, and there's no reason for a Suns team who is 7th in the West or a Warriors team who is 8th in the West to get a number 1 overall pick, since they're obviously good enough to make the playoffs and to be competitive in the NBA. So I don't know if that, I mean, I guess it would lower odds from the top teams, but regardless, I don't like that rule too much. And the final one from Shams Charania is flatten odds for all lottery teams. And this one, you can kind of see like the reason behind it, where once you're in the lottery, that's all you need to do. And then now you can be competitive as long as you're a bottom 14 team. But I think this would make it so that we are starting to see the bad teams not get better. And this has been a conversation around the flatten odds, where you're seeing Utah and Washington tank for this many years because they have not gotten that top 3 pick. They have not gotten that top 2 pick. I mean, Utah picked 5 last year, and Washington picked 6, somewhere around there, and they had some of the worst records in the NBA. Detroit was bad for 3-4 years, and they picked 5th. So that is why you would want to include all teams in the lottery. But now you're having Washington and Utah having these same chances as Charlotte, who right now is 9th in the Eastern Conference. I don't think that's the way to do it, because you have Charlotte who jumps up, and there's a chance that Brooklyn could get the 14th overall pick. And now it just really eliminates the point of a rebuild and the point of building through the draft. So that is all for Shams Charania's tweets. I have a few more that are a little bit out there that I just wanted to speak on. This next one is one I won't spend too much time on. It is a tournament that decides the number 1 overall pick, and this is obviously a very big joke, or around the NBA. I don't think anyone is serious with this thing because it would mean the best team gets the number one overall pick, which doesn't make sense. It adds competitiveness in the offseason, I guess, but I don't think anyone would be too serious about adding this rule. But the second one that I have is all rookies are a free agent. And this one is a serious point that people have brought, and I hate it. I think there is another league where they do this. But just having it, I think the draft as an event and as a whole is like important for the NBA and for rookies and for these college guys. So I think eliminating an NBA draft would be insane. And now you get Darren Peterson, who can go wherever he wants, or AJ DeBonzo or Cam Boozer, who can just go wherever they want and sign with whoever they want. And the argument about not building a super team like Darren Peterson can't go to LA is that they don't have the money to pay him. But with guys already getting NIL deals and things like that, they have money. So there is a chance that Darren Peterson, not to go to LA, but to a competitive team and signs a $15 million deal instead of going to Brooklyn, who could give him a $35 million deal. It just depends on what these young players want, what these agents want. And I think a draft is a good way to manage these young players, these young guys. And maybe you get drafted to Sacramento and now you have to go to Sacramento and now you have to be competitive in Sacramento. And that's just the point I think we need to see from these young guys. So I really hate the idea of eliminating the draft as a whole and making everybody free agents. And the third idea that I've seen is a wheel that goes through all 30 NBA teams deciding their placement. So in 30 years, every single NBA team would have a number 1 overall pick. Every single NBA team would have a number 2 overall pick. And this is an idea that I don't know the logistics. You would have to, it would have to be a pretty big system to make sure that every single team picks at every single spot. But overall, I again don't like this idea either. I think having the draft figured out in the preseason is not the way you should do it. Overall, I'm for the NBA draft. I'm for tanking. I'm for all of this stuff. It can hurt the product, right? If you see Washington or Utah sitting their guys in the fourth quarter. But overall, it's what these teams need to do. They are 16-43, Washington is. Utah is 18-42. So that's what they have to do. They're not, even if they don't sit these guys, even if they don't say that these guys are hurt, they're not going to get over 25, 30 wins on the season. So there's no point for them to really try, and they can rebuild through the draft and get better through the draft so we can see in 3 or 4 years this team really be competitive. And so adding a wheel through all 30 NBA teams really eliminates the point of a lottery or a draft. And I think that's not what we want to see, because there was a chance that a wheel spun 5 years ago gave OKC the number 1 overall pick last season after they're coming off a championship, because the wheel doesn't know that OKC just had a championship. So they're coming off a championship, and now you add in Cooper Flagg to that stacked OKC team which already looked like a dynasty. And it does mean that we will see Sacramento get a number 1 overall pick. We will see some of these teams who never pick number 1 overall get a number 1 overall pick. But overall, I don't like the, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if Indiana will ever, be in the finals last season and then come back with a number 1 overall pick, and maybe they won the championship, right? Maybe in 2030 the Washington Wizards have a number 1 overall pick, but in the 2030 finals they go out and beat someone in the finals. So we never know what will happen in this many years. So overall, I am just not for that idea either. So I do want to know what y'all think about the NBA tanking situation and how you would fix it and how you would move around the draft to fix this NBA tanking. And make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe.